since George Floyd, I would say. Yeah, it's really shaking up the state's reputation. I wouldn't say that our state's reputation has been that great ever since 2020, but this is admittedly making it so much worse. Ladies and gentlemen, Somali-run daycares in Minnesota are claiming that they were broken into after the viral video went live a couple weeks back. The crew of pirates are now plotting the runaway part of the scheme. The thing to watch out for, ladies and gentlemen, in the next few weeks and months, it's going to become more recognized widely this year, and it's going to be something that we're going to talk about in the mainstream. Weaponized victimhood. You'll see what I mean in a minute. The headline refers to an incident at Nokomis, Nokomis Daycare Center, a Somali-owned childcare facility in South Minneapolis, where staff reported a burglary and vandalism discovered on December 30th, 2025. According to the center's manager, Nasrullah Mohammed, intruders broke through the back wall overnight, likely between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., caused extensive damage, including to the office door, and stole sensitive documents related to employees and enrolled children, as well as ripping pages from checkbooks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you're like me, I would assume that this is like any other business that has existed since, I would say, roughly the 70s and 80s. They have digital records of all these things. They should be able to produce these regardless of whether or not these paper documents were destroyed or tampered with. You should have everything cataloged digitally, so there should be no issue, right, when the FBI requires you to... Listen, I will say there's a lot of people going, oh, the child care is getting cut off for the state. Oh, this sucks for child care in general. Sometimes you do have to punish the lot in order to save in order to save everybody. I see that there's a lot of people that are like, oh, we're legitimate child care owners, and we're going to stand with the Somali people because we don't want our facilities to get taken down in this. I would love to say to everybody that's involved in the child care industry, if you're legitimate, you have nothing to worry about. So, there is no issue. I have no issue with this childcare stuff being cut off. I have no issue with any of this extensive review that we're trying to toss over and turn over. Any of this that's happening, I have no issue with it. And if you do, I understand your position. I understand why you may have your quarrels with it, but you have to understand the issue could result in over $8 billion in over the course of the last few years that we've been running these schemes. Could have been $8 billion that we could have lost in taxpayer money that could have been going to legitimate centers like yours. So, if you personally are not interested in having an overhaul review in order to save the mouths of hungry children, folks, I don't know what else to say. You need to knock it off and you need to get with the program, because the level of fraud we are uncovering in this investigation is staggering. It's caused extensive damage. Apparently, Minneapolis police confirmed the incident as a burglary and are investigating. No arrest reports are being reported right now. As of January now. The center, licensed in 2016 for up to 71 children, emphasized its compliance with state regulations and denied any involvement in fraud. Staff at Nokomis Daycare Center directly linked the break-in to heightened threats and harassment following the 42-minute YouTube video posted shortly after Christmas by Nick Shirley, a self-described independent journalist. With what's it called? In the video, he already has amassed tens of millions of views across many platforms. He visited the doors of nearly a dozen Minneapolis child care centers, many of them Somali-run, and he alleged that they appeared empty or inactive. Many of them did. They were receiving public funds totaling sometimes in the millions, and Mohammed stated that December 31st, in a press conference, that the facility had received hateful and threatening messages in the days prior, attributing the targeting to the video's spread, which he called false claims, scapegoating the Somali community. The burglary occurred amid intense scrutiny of Minnesota's child care assistance programs, amplified by Shirley's video, and broader ongoing federal investigations into fraud and state social services. The United States Department of Health and Human Services froze all federal child care payments to Minnesota, approximately $185 million annually, shortly after the video went viral, citing the need for audits. This followed years of reported issues, including prior fraud cases in programs like Feeding Our Future, though the state inspectors, some media reports noted no confirmed fraud at the specific centers featured in the video as of late. Recent and unannounced visits are being taken under by the FBI and whatnot. Kash Patel himself is saying that he's allocating forces to migrate home state, which, thanks, I really appreciate it, bud. I mean, I hope that we can get a stop on your girlfriend's music tour. That would be awesome. That would be the ultimate service to our people. Community members at the press conference expressed fears of racism and broader impacts on legitimate providers. Somali childcare providers and supporters, including parents and organizers, condemned the incident as part of backlash against Minnesota's larger Somali American community, with signs at the press conference reading, "Racism has no place in childcare." While fraud investigations continue separate from but intensified by the video, the break-ins have raised concerns about safety, with reports of threats extending to other centers. I'm hoping that's not the case. Listen, I'm hoping that people are going out and taking photos in front of them, because it's a funny incident, ladies and gentlemen. Let's play this clip. I wanna get it right from their mouths.
Care Center sharing this surveillance video with Fox 9 of what they believe is an attempted break-in.
There's a guy in all black with a backpack jolting at the door, and he appears to be alone in this alleyway.
Any child care center says it happened just after midnight as they reported it, and they reported it to police. Now, it comes the same night another Somali-run child care center says somebody broke in and vandalized their building.
Nokomis Child Care Center says important paperwork was stolen in the process. Our Leon Purvis heard from both facilities and joins us with what they had to say. So, Leon.
Simone Kelsey, two of the Daycares tell me tonight they are concerned for their child care center and employees. Another claims that important paperwork was taken from them. A Somali-run childcare named Mini Child Care Center shared this surveillance video with us. They say someone tried to get inside after midnight.
Honestly, it's shocking. It's honestly really sad, and it makes me feel concerned for my own safety at this point.
Just last weekend, a viral video was filmed outside of Somali-run daycare centers claiming they were fraudulent. This child care center was one of the centers in the video. Fox 9 visited the site and saw kids were at the child care center on New Year's Eve. The manager tells Fox 9 kids go in and out a different door, and this has put them in a position where their safety is at risk, and they are getting phone calls constantly.
And it used to be parents running.
They're showing footage of the inside of this childcare center. There's only about 6 or 7, not joking, kids in there, and they all just so happen, I don't know if this is just out of convenience or not, they all happen to be hijabi. They all happen to they all happen to be little girls with hijabs on, and little boys that are walking around, and they appear to be Somali. Would it just so happen that these managers of this facility, I'm not making any allegations here, but brought their own children to fill these spots in order to get some solid footage for the news? I mean, listen, I'm not making any accusations. I'm just being imaginative with my audience, because that's one of my favorite things to be.
Late, parents running behind, what time they would be coming or whatnot, and now it's more or less people just like antagonizing us and calling us, trying to either threaten us.
There's one kid playing with blocks.
Just false information that they want to enroll their child here.
Wednesday morning, Nokomis Daycare Center, another child care center, addressed an alleged vandalism and break-in that happened overnight.
We've been receiving hateful messages.
This is one of my favorites, because the gentleman in this press conference who is giving the actual speech that you're listening to, he's wearing glasses that, and this has been fact-checked by multiple sources, cost $2,400. I mean, for a poor community not doing too hot, I would say that's a hefty purchase.
Through our voice notes threatening us.
Managers claim they found documents missing and their building damaged.
Because when you break into a building, first of all, you target a daycare center, because obviously they have loads of money. They have a safe full of it, because they would have it, obviously. and you steal employment records, obviously.
This is devastating news, and we don't know why this is targeting our Somali community, as one video made by a specific individual made this all happen.
Other daycare providers are worried about their safety and reputations.
I don't know how to protect my records, and they're going around.
There's this woman in a hijab, holding these records in a file cabinet going, they're going around stealing records. I'm not believing you for a minute. First of all, and second of all, also, I mentioned earlier in the video, you should have all these records digitized. Why are people coming in stealing your employment records? It makes no goddamn sense. And why are people breaking into daycare centers? That also makes no goddamn sense. There's no money there.
Vandalizing the daycares and collecting the student data.
Both the daycares tell us tonight, if you want to check out they're not fraudulent.
Oh my god, listen, I may fuck up on reading shit, but I don't get paid a solid check by Fox Minneapolis St. Paul 9 to read shit out. How come this guy is slipping over his words so goddamn much? I mean, recognizably, he has an incredibly bad receding hairline. He has a suit that looks like it's not fitting him properly. The purple tie is questionable. His smoker's neck is on reveal for the world. His eyes are off level, indicating that he's had a traumatic brain injury at a certain point in his life. This guy just does not have it all together. His handkerchief is too big for his handkerchief pocket on his jacket. It's ridiculous. This man looks like a clown. I don't understand why we have him. Leon Purvis at Fox 9 Minneapolis St. Paul. I'm calling you out, Leon Purvis. Get your shit in order, straight up. You look like a mess on the news, and talk right. If you're going to be getting figure paychecks, get your figures straight, get your words straight, talk nice. Don't talk like me.
Us tonight, if you want to check out they're not fraudulent, to come visit them during business hours.
Business hours.
Studio, Leon Purvis, Fox 9.
Leon Purvis of Fox 9. All right, love it. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. I mean, folks, read it for yourself. We're going to go ahead and we're going to play this next clip from the news, because why not?
Here's the manager at another one of these Somalian-run daycare centers in Minnesota. Look at this guy. This is not the Great Leering Center that we told you about. This is another one.
Yes.
And this guy actually tried to convince the public that someone broke into the daycare center, and wouldn't you know it, they stole all of the enrollment paperwork for the children who were allegedly enrolled at that daycare center, and they stole all of the employee paperwork, because that's what people steal.
As we walked around the daycare, we saw that our office doors was broken into as well.
Yes. I love that one of their fucking ringtones goes off.
We saw that there was important documentation, enrollment of the children, and also...
Oh my god, I love that even the white lady in the background, she rolls her eyes and shakes her head at the guy giving the speech.
Employee documentation that was gone.
See the woman, racism has no place in daycare. Yeah, lady, this has nothing to do with racism. And I'm sure the IRS is going to buy that story. And apparently this guy right here doesn't realize that any real business would have all of that information on a computer. On a computer. Especially a daycare. It's not 1958 anymore. My kids were in daycare. Trust me, the daycare center had more information than you could possibly imagine on me and my wife. Because real daycare centers are tasked with taking care of the most important thing in every single parent's life, and that's their children. After that, he immediately went back to playing the victim because Somalians are the victims.
There were also checkbooks that were ripped from our check papers that were ripped from our book. This is devastating news, and we don't know why this is targeting our Somali community, as one video made by a specific individual made this all happen.
Oh yeah, you have no idea why this is all happening? Really? I can think of about 9 billion reasons why this is happening. Jeez. And I also think it's important for us to address what he said at the very end there. Quote, one video by a specific individual made all this happen, as he not so subtly blames all this on Nick Shirley, the 23-year-old YouTuber, like it's his fault. Because don't forget, Minnesota Somalians are the victims. They're
a lot
the
of the time.
But we're not going to play that game. We're not going to do it tonight. We're not going to do it anymore. because there is only one group that made all this happen, allegedly, reportedly, and that was you. And maybe hundreds, if not thousands, of Somalian immigrants across Minnesota and other states. They are the criminals, and they should be in jail. And many will go to jail. They made this happen, not Nick Shirley.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, first of all, weaponized victimhood is one of my favorite things that we're going to be talking about in 2026. We're going to start talking about it a lot more because it's going to become a lot more recognized that, oh yeah, the right uses this, the left uses this. It's whoever happens to be the more victimized individual, whether or not you had an engine for a grandma, or your whatever was a slave, if your something was a Slav and, Slavic slave or whatever, if you're a Jew, if you're a Kraut, if you're a Guinea, if you're a Jap, whatever you happen to be, if that's a group that is considered to be a less privileged group than whoever you may be having a debate with, boom, trump card, you win because you have more lived experience. One of the most ridiculous things you'll hear from more liberal-minded and unfortunately people is that you don't have the lived experience of a black person. You don't have the lived experience of a Hispanic person. You don't have the lived experience of a white person, though you don't hear that nearly as often. But you do hear people that when you bring up statistics, when you bring up crime statistics, when you bring up cultural issues, when you bring up anything relating to how women can be treated as third-class citizens in certain countries, you know what I mean? When you bring up the serious issues with how certain countries are literally destabilized and create cultures of honor killings, rape, and whatnot, you are suddenly looked at as like, well, you don't have the lived experience to have these opinions on certain groups of people. You need to, for some reason, default to whatever they say because your lived experience is not equal to facts. Like, facts, they're bullshit. You need to know a person's perspective. You need to understand their mind. This is a loose, slimy, gross way of essentially saying there's no real way of addressing issues unless you are that person, and we have to default to your perspective 100% of the time. It's ridiculous. It's something that you'll hear from abortion advocates. It's something where you'll hear like, oh, men can't have an opinion about abortion because it doesn't affect them. Well, there's a lot of fathers that are paying child support that I wouldn't exactly say would agree with that. You know what I mean? There's certain issues where like you'll hear grand sweeping like, oh, you belong to this group? Shut up, person. Yeah, I don't know that that's going to stand up to anything anymore. You know what I mean? You know what? The only thing we have on our side is facts. And you know what? For shits and gigs, I want to use facts and go through like a 3 or 4 minute tour of Somalia's history. Really examine what went wrong for this nation of entrepreneurs, doctors, businessmen, scholars, quite frankly. Like, let's just take a look real quick.
Somalia is a name which has unfortunately become synonymous with failed state. It's a nation with extremely high levels of poverty, one whose government is barely existent, and notably it's a country racked with violence. But how did this come to be? Why did Somalia fail? So, as of 1945, Somalia, like most of Africa, was under European control. It was divided into 2 areas, British Somaliland in the north and Somalia to the south and east.
Which was most of the actual Somalia coast, if you look at a map. The Somaliland is mostly this north chunk north of your Ethiopia. Excuse me, God.
It was also run by Britain at this point, who had taken it from Italy in the Second World War. Now, Britain's first instinct was to ask the brand new UN, maybe we could keep it, but the Somali people were pretty sick of Europeans, and the UN said no. And thus, it was run by the British, who allowed for the establishment of political parties, and under orders from the UN, it was passed back to Italy in 1950, on the sole condition that they give it independence within 10 years. And in 1960, both the British and Italian Somalilands were given independence, and very soon afterwards they united into the Somali Republic. At first, the Republic functioned well. The people of Somalia had free elections, freedom of speech, and the economy was growing. However, there were 2 major issues which plagued the Somali Republic. The first was that politics was dominated by the deeply entrenched clan system, and as a...
That's not exactly also an accurate description of their politics in relation to that moment. It was mostly a communistic government. The economy wasn't exploding, more so as it was like government-run camps, things like that. You can talk about farmer reform and how good that is for your population when you're slaughtering literally the people that grow your corn, but whatever. I mean, not corn, obviously, whatever they have there.
The result became fairly partisan, and the second was the idea of Greater Somalia. These lands were home to some and often a majority Somali population, and many in government were divided on whether or not to push for territorial expansion or to simply let things lie. This question wouldn't get answered anytime soon, since this was the Cold War, and 1969 meant that it was time for a communist revolution. A man called Mohammed Siad Barre, with the help of some of the army, seized control of the country and began to implement wide-sweeping reforms. Things were going pretty well, right? Well, yes, except for the fact that Bahrain had a clever idea in 1977, let's invade Ethiopia. Specifically to gain this region called the Ogaden and incorporate it and the Somalis living there
Eastern
into Somalia
Ethiopia.
proper. And with the help of the USSR, it would be simple. Or at least that it would have been, barring the fact that the Soviet Union didn't approve and so aided Ethiopia along with a large number of Cuban troops. The war went poorly for Somalia, and by 1978 it had lost, and many Somalis living in eastern Ethiopia fled for Somalia. Within the space of a year, Somalia's population went from just under 4 million to over 5 million. And as you'll have guessed, this caused issues with infrastructure and food supply, and the national humiliation of losing a war caused major discontent in Bahrain's regime. There was an attempted coup and a harsh crackdown that followed, in which Bahrain focused on certain clans. To make matters worse, Somalia's food and water supply had begun to collapse, and so it was reliant on foreign aid, which Bahrain only gave to clans which supported him. Over the course of the 1980s, Somalia grew worse. The economy entered freefall, and Bahrain's government became much more brutal in suppressing any challenge to its authority. This led to growing armed resistance by the sidelined clans, and by 1990, civil war. Most of Somalia fell to the rebels pretty quickly, and by 1991 Bahrain had fled the country, never to return, and also northern lands here declared independence as the Republic of Somaliland. And whilst many clans had put aside their differences to ask Bahrain, now that he was gone, there was nothing keeping them together, and so, civil war. Again. Or still. As you all know, things didn't get much better after this. American and UN intervention did nothing to help, and Somalia's state only got worse.
Yep.
Law and order had completely broken down, meaning jobs that provided food were no longer safe, and meant controlling aid was the quickest route to power, meaning that Somalia was never given the opportunity to get back on its feet. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Thank you. History matters, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in that. So, like I said, it's really fascinating, ladies and gentlemen, when you look back at the history of just like, oh shoot, it's been a relatively unstable region for a long-ass time, long-ass time, and I don't know that continued investment in the region is interesting or within our interest. I'm going to review a few more clips before we get on to our next story, because quite frankly, this one was one of my favorites I saw on TikTok. It is a small hijabied little girl, and she is in a coat. She's obviously in Minneapolis. She's a Somali child in Minnesota. She essentially is saying that we as Somali people should not be considered illegal because this is like stolen land. So I love it. I love that they are sending out their youngest in order to defend themselves, because they realize that the jig is up, so much so that they have to use children as shields. It's very Gazan of them, you know what I mean? Very, very Hamas. This is sick. This is twisted. And by the way, I would love to get this child's vocabulary straight. I understand that she might not have the most familiar experience with American history. Conquered, not stolen, as in they won it. In battle, they successfully took the land and then reserved the native peoples to certain areas. Yeah, that's how it works sometimes. Stolen, every land is unfortunately stolen. Every land is conquered. And if you want to talk to the people that were tribally here before us, then they were doing plenty of conquering, plenty of raping, plenty of slaughtering of other tribes. They just were suckier at it and didn't have as good of weapons. You're just mad, unfortunately. And this is the argument that you get a lot from people and nativists and all that. They're really, really mad that they just lost. They're really upset. And this is coming from somebody that, like, talking about, I grew up near White Earth and all that sort of stuff. There is still this very intense feeling of, like, oh, the Indians don't really care that much anymore. You talk to anybody about stolen land, whatever. I get free healthcare from the federal government. I got nothing to bitch about. They give us our own ability to rule over this dirt land. Whatever. It's what we got. It's essentially how their attitude is. You know what I mean? It's the attitude of the American Indian. The government has to give them any more. The government gives them plenty. So, like, let me get this straight. You know what I mean? For a people that lost, they've been given quite a lot. Let's be honest. This little girl, let's hear her words directly, because this is just going to be for shits and gigs, guys. Let's just have fun.
Support everyone, and because like people deserve to be here, because we shouldn't be illegal when this is literally like stolen land.
Stolen, I wouldn't agree with that. Conquered, that's correct. Yes, won in the heat of battle, and then eventually conquered more for the gold and the the other shit that they had, unfortunately, that they didn't even know they had, by the way, because they didn't even by the way, if you want to talk about how grand and great the native population was, they were, sure, and whatnot, they never made it to the wheel. They never invented the wheel. So let's get honest about certain relative whatevers, you know what I mean? The Iron Age, the Stone Age, whatever, like, how far did they really make it compared to the Eastern world? Let's be honest with each other. And I don't see this, by the way, getting any better. You look at photos and videos of the mayor of Minneapolis. It looks like he's willing to encourage this sort of onslaught of migration from this community. And you know what? If that's his interest, listen, this is like, you watch this level of glazing that he gives Somalia, and you're like, I haven't seen this level of glazing since U.S. politicians glazing Israel. It's such bad glazing. Listen.
Well, I'm a little bit busy right now. A few months from now, in the next year, I would very much like to visit Somalia.
Thanks, Jacob Fry.
This has been something that I would like to do for quite a long time, but to be there with my friends.
Your friends.
To be there together. My brothers and sisters. I'm learning.
What the fuck? I mean, you got him going, assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum, I'd love to go to Somalia, it sounds fun, you know what I mean? I love him. He's so cringy, but he's my favorite mayor that Minneapolis has. There's so many good clips of him glazing Somalia and glazing the Somali population. It's fun. I have not seen a mayor cater to such a small group of city residents. I mean, it's intense if you really listen to the guy.
Let's hear from the newly re-elected mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry.
Let's do it.
Jacob Fry.
Mahanga Wegawa.
Galada, Minneapolis. Damaan, Sha'abka, Somalia, Kayimid, Mogadishu.
How long do you think it took him to memorize that and be able to do that? What
long ass
perks
time
come with being mayor that make this worth it?
Maaga Yegawa, Yarub Farid. Doka, Magalada.
I'm not gonna lie to you. If he was up here speaking Ojibwa, I would understand that more than if he was out there speaking Somali, because I'd be like, at least they have a history in the lands or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't know what else to say. That's the most interesting thing about it, is like, there's a lot of claims around the idea of they've committed so much. They've committed so much to the land, to the prospering of the nation, and I would argue, well, It's given that the first Somali didn't technically show up in the United States until the 1920s, and even then they were just very few, like in the dozens, you know what I mean? Very few up until 1991 when we really, really started to onboard them. And then, of course, there was the 1960s where we began the Hart-Celler Act and whatnot. The Hart-Celler Act, which it began the opening to a lot of other regions of the world, Asia, South America, Africa, all these other regions. But even then, you still didn't see very many Somalis coming into the country until they had a civil war and began to tear apart their own country. That's really when you started to see the onboarding of them in such significant high numbers. Why did they choose Minnesota? I'm deeply curious about that. That is one of my most interested things that I like to think about.